everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the semifinals BookTube Prize Translated Fiction vlog. So I am reading Group A and I was lucky enough to only have 4 books in the group that I haven't already read. So overall, I think the grouping is pretty interesting. I have 3 books that are translated from French, 1 from German, 1 from Spanish, 1 from Hebrew. And so I'm starting with Inseparable, which is a novel, a never before published novel by Simone de Beauvoir, the very famous French feminist writer from the she kind of came of age, I think, in the 1950s. I don't know when she wrote The Second Sex. I guess the 1950s. Maybe not. This says 1928. So I'm not really exactly sure the era that she was from, and I've never read any of her other like really famous works. So I'm really excited to start with this novel because I think it will be a really good introduction into her fiction, because I do have The Mandarins, which is one of her other novels on my list, but it is a huge book, so I've just been intimidated by starting it. I think it's 500 pages or so. So this is a story that in the introduction by Margaret Atwood says it was kind of inspired by her friendship with another girl as she was growing up. And so it's a coming of age story with these 2 friends, and it starts when they're 9 years old and they meet in school. So, you know, it's very much a commentary on the class and the social status of these 2 girls in France at the time, and like what they endure, I think, as they are trying to negotiate the roles that women are supposed to play in this very strict French society. So I did vote for this one on the list, and I was so excited to see it in my group because I think I have to check the list, and I will try to do that in this video. I think that this is the only book that I voted for getting through that I'm getting to read thus far. I didn't get to read it in the second round, so you know, it's hard to say because I haven't examined the list that much yet, but I will do that. So BookTube Prize has started. This is the first one I'm reading. I did make that decision, A, because I voted for it, B, because someone has it on hold at the library. So I will only have this one for the month of June, and then I will have to return it to the library. And the other ones I could potentially hold longer if I need to, thus far. So I will check in with you when I get halfway through this book, and I'll talk to you then. Hey everybody, so I just wanted to check in quickly about Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir. I am halfway through. I think I'm a little bit over halfway, so I wanted to make sure I checked in. And it is a very readable novel. I also really like how the translator put in these little descriptions of different names of writers or prominent French politicians or different types of religious leaders during the era that the novel is written in, because it just gives a little bit more context for someone like myself who's not really familiar with those types of aspects of French culture as you're reading the book. And the characterization is really good, and there's definitely a sense of foreboding in the story. And I don't know if that's because I read the introduction by Margaret Atwood before I read it, and I don't usually do that. I usually wait and read the introduction after I've read the book, because I hate it when people who write introductions spoil plot points. But I don't know, I felt compelled to start with it, so I read it. I think because this novel was published posthumously, and because it's, you know, from a different era, it's not a modern day work, it has a different feeling to it. So it's interesting to read it in comparison to other books. I obviously haven't started any of the others yet, and I got The Art of Losing in the mail, and it is a long book. It is, I think it's over 400 pages. So I've started with the shortest book, which was probably not a great idea in terms of timing, but it's the one that's on hold at the library, so it's the one that I need to get back first. So I'm going to be finished the book quite quickly, actually. I'm hoping to finish it this coming week so that I can get going on some of the longer ones. But I do, like I said, I really like the relationship between the two young women. I think the way that the plot progresses is really good. So the book moves at a fairly good pace. It starts off when they're 9. We don't stay with them when they're little kids for very long, which I think is good. Then we move into teenager period, and then we get into early 20s. So it moves very quickly through their lives to kind of get to the juicy parts, to kind of get to the most important points. And I think when you're doing a coming of age story, that is good. I don't think you should linger too long in one time. And I know different authors do it in different ways, and you have some coming of age stories that only take place in 1 year of someone's life, but I like to get a little bit more of a survey of a character's experiences and kind of feel a depth of relationship. And because this book is about the relationship between Sylvie and Andre, is that her name? Andre? Yeah, my brain's not very with it these days. But because it's about their relationship, I like having that longer survey of time. And it's interesting to learn about the restrictions in French culture at that time, based on class, based on religion, based on the role of women, and the very tight role of women in the society at the time. So really enjoying it so far. I'll check in again when I finished it. Hey everyone. Okay, so I finished Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir, translated by Sandra Smith. And actually, I found out when reading this that Sandra Smith also translated Suite Française, which I have, and I have not yet read, by Irene Navarowski, I think her name is. So that's good to know that I've already read something from this translator. Okay, so my thoughts about this. It was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting to learn the context behind this novel, that it was about a certain person. It was about Simone de Beauvoir trying to create a replica, like trying to capture a relationship that she had with a friend that she loved very much. So I think that was really interesting to me about it. As a novel itself, it was maybe a bit sparse, or it's very short, so it doesn't really necessarily feel complete to me, in terms of a broader kind of narrative, or like in-depth characters, even though I thought she did a really good job of making the characters believable in a very short amount of pages. So I was thinking about it earlier where I would put this in my rankings, because I've already read Where We Come From and How to Order the Universe. So I would definitely put it above How to Order the Universe. I know everyone else who's read that book in BookTube Prize judging has really loved it, but it didn't have much of an impression. It didn't leave much of an impression for me. And this book, I would say, leaves a bit more of an impression because I like the context in which it was written. I think that trying to capture something as passionate and deep as female friendship is really admirable, and I admire Simone de Beauvoir's desire to depict that on the page. And I feel like, you know, some of my best friends that I feel such deep connection to, like trying to make that connection into words would be very challenging. So I'd really admire that she tried to do that with her friend Zaza. But in terms of a book that I'll hold on to and remember and love to that degree, I think maybe, you know, I don't think it'll necessarily go down as one of my top novels of all time. So that's kind of where I am with that. And I'm moving on. I'm going to be starting The Anomaly by Herve Tellier. And there are 3 French novels in this grouping. And so I thought, oh, do I go to the Hebrew novel instead? But I think I'm going to stick with these 2 French ones for this vlog, because, you know, these are actually, this one and the Art of Losing are really quite long. And I'm a little bit nervous. My reading in June so far has been sporadic, and it's shaping up to be very similar to, was it March or April where I struggled? I can't remember which month it was, but it was definitely a struggle. And that's just, I'm very busy at work, and school is ending for the kids, and I'm getting ready to send some artwork across the country for an exhibition. And so there's just a lot on my mind. And as much as I want to sit down and just read and relax, I haven't had much chance to do that. But I do have all of this weekend coming and all of the next weekend of June free. There's nothing planned on them yet. And so I think I'm going to just really settle in and get some serious reading done. So in terms of BookTube Prize, I hope that means that I can knock this one out in the last 2 weeks of June. I would really love to go into July with only 2 more books to read for BookTube Prize, because I'm going to be traveling. So I believe our results are due on July 30th, and I'm actually going to be back east in Quebec on that date. So I would rather, if at all possible, finish my BookTube Prize reading before I fly. So that would mean I would have to finish it by July 16th. I have no idea if I can actually do that, given that I am still very busy. I have a lot going on with work. But I would really like to finish them so that I don't have to worry about submitting my judging when I'm not at home. I'd rather do that from home. So I'm going to try my best to finish those 2 books before July 16th and submit my rankings. And that way I can just read at my leisure while I'm on vacation, and not be worrying about finishing a book and submitting rankings. So that's my plan right now. We will see how it goes. And I will check in again with you when I have gotten my first impressions of The Anomaly. Hey everyone, so I am halfway in The Anomaly by Herve Tellier, and it was translated by Adriana Hunter. Okay, so this book is quite an adventure. It is multiple perspectives, And the premise is that the connection between all these people is they were all on the same airplane, an Air France flight going from Paris to New York. And some strange things start happening, and you only start piecing that together slowly. It's a slow reveal. So I am enjoying it. It has a really fun, adventurous feel to it. And I kind of wish it was going more in depth with the characters, but ultimately it's a story about all these passengers on this plane, and you're only getting like some perspectives of those people, and then you're getting some perspectives of some of the other people who are also helping to unravel the mystery in the story. So I am enjoying it. I think it's got just enough of that intrigue to keep me going through. I don't want to reveal a lot of the plot about it because I think it's better to not know a lot about the plot in this book. I think it would be a great movie. It really has that intrigue and suspense that I think movies do super well. You know, like, it'd just be really interesting. So yeah, I am enjoying it so far. It's hard to tell if I would put this at the top of the list. Like, I think it's a good book, so it's entertaining, so I would put it at the top of the list. But in terms of something that is touching or making me feel anything, it's not really doing that yet. So we'll see. I will check in again when I get to the end of the Anomaly. Hey everyone. Okay, I finished The Anomaly by Herve Le Tellier, translated by Adriana Hunter from French. Okay, I mean, this is a very entertaining novel. Okay, it's very entertaining. It is, it grapples with a lot of questions in a way that I think most people would really enjoy reading. For me, though, there were some issues. I found a lot of the female characters to be very thinly drawn. They were very stereotypical female situations for the doppelgangers to deal with. So in terms of characters that are representative and that are complex and all those things, for the women characters, I found that to be a little bit frustrating. And it was a very plot-driven novel. So if you like plot-driven novels, then I think you'll enjoy it. But for me, there wasn't enough individual depth to the characters, to the point where, you know, you'd read about a character in one of the earlier chapters and then you wouldn't hear about them again for many chapters, and then they'd say, oh, this person, and then I'd be like, who was that person again? Like, I couldn't remember who they were. So for me, I feel like if he would have used less characters, that would have helped me with this, because I would have been able to attach more to like the more main characters and then play out the scenarios through their brains. I feel like he tried to present all these scenarios, all these different types of people, and to me it's too much. Like, you can't get enough out of it. You need more. So that was one part for me. I mean, I think there was also sometimes the philosophical aspects that he was trying to talk about here. So things like the nature of a soul, and are we a simulation, and those types of things are kind of they're very abstract, and I don't really enjoy like reading about them. I find it to be too obscure to get your brain around, and then you're not actually grounded in the story. You're kind of floating in this like land of conjecture, which is not enjoyable for me when I'm reading a novel. That's not what I'm going for. And then the ending, I don't know what he's trying to say with the ending. I guess you know, spoiler alert, I guess he's trying to say that the world ended. I don't know. I mean, if you've read this and you have a theory about the ending, write it down below for me. So there's a lot in here to think about and to contemplate, and that was great. I also find with plot-driven novels, they just always want to wrap everything up in a bow. So he was wrapping things up in a bow, and then he like potentially ended civilization as we know it, I think. So that's interesting, but ambiguous. And yes, I'm not exactly clear if that's what he was saying here, but I feel like it was. What else should I say about this? I think the translation was pretty good. I think that there was a wide variety of characters represented. I think it's interesting that he is a French author and he made the plane land in New York and decided to centralize the plot around the American politics and security angle instead of the French one. I'm not sure why. Was he, you know, writing this book with the intention of appealing to the American, you know, book buying public, or was it more because, you know, the United States have this military might, and so he needed a country that had more military might than France in order to play out the scenario in his brain that he was playing out. Yeah. So in terms of where this falls in what I've read so far, this is the 4th book. Okay, so Where We Come From and How to Order the Universe were the books that I read in the previous round. How to Order the Universe was not a book that I wanted to put through. It was a book that I put as number 4. So the fact that it went through means the subsequent 2 round was that other people like it more than me. So in all intents and purposes, it's very likely that that will be my number 6. And it's not because I hate the book, just because, you know, I didn't enjoy it a huge amount. Where We Come From by Saša Stanišic was my first ranking in the first round. And this book has not topped it. So I think a lot of people would really like this. Like, I really can't stress that enough, that this is more of the fact that I'm a character-based reader, and the characters in here stayed a little too surface for me. And, you know, you could say, what? They had all these emotional turmoils and all these things, but, you know, making your characters experience emotional turmoil does not make them a deep character, in my opinion. It just means that they're going through something, and the amount of time you spend with them is so brief. In some cases, they're making these huge life-altering decisions, so you have no time to connect to them, no time to really care about them or invest in who they are and who they might be becoming, because you just don't get enough time. I think some people who write in this multiple character format are able to get you connected to the characters fast, emotionally connected. I've experienced it before, but I didn't find Tellier was able to do that for me in this novel. I didn't really feel much investment in any of them, and I didn't I was only reading because I was curious to see what happened to them. I wasn't emotionally invested in what happened to them in any way. And there were some pretty heavy topics in here that I felt were not handled glibly, but just made into very black and white scenarios that are satisfying in a plot, but that are not satisfying when you're coming to it again from wanting deep characters with complexity. So yeah, so right now I would put this above Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir. And that's only because I think that that book is a very specific novel written for a very specific reason, and it doesn't have the same, the same level of gravitas, for lack of a better word, that this book has. It's just not as, it's a simpler story. It's a story, it's a quiet story. It's an homage story. So it has a way, a place that it belongs in literature, and that's not really the winner of a prize. Like it's not a great novel in terms of like capital G, you know. It's more of a wonderful little story that is touching to understand the motivation behind and things like that, but it is not on the same scale as a novel like this, so it's almost unfair to judge them against each other. But so this one right now for me would be sitting number 3-4. I am very curious to see what happens when I read the next two books, because they are family sagas, and I am way more in, you know, that gives you more time. They're longer. There's more emotional investment in a book like that, which means it's highly likely that I will like those two books more than any of the others. Where We Come From had some really great characters. So even though I wasn't super invested, Where We Come From had some really great characters. So even though like it wasn't a traditional style novel and it moved very differently, I was attached to especially the grandmother character in that novel. So I still would put it above this one, even though if you're, you know, a more like a general reader, like this book would definitely, you'd prefer it to the other one. I know that hands down, but this is just, I have to judge from my own reading tastes, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to judge for anyone but myself and like what I like the best. And so yeah, so the Anomaly is finished and Inseparable is finished, and that means that this vlog is also finished. I will be putting The Art of Losing and More Than I Love My Life into another vlog with those two books together, and then I will be making a separate video that has all my final thoughts on the rankings. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon with another video.